Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's presentation of Verifyle Pro as a benefit for NBHAP members and potential NBHAP members. My name is Dana Shibley with the company Verifyle. And first off, I want to go ahead and say that all of us here at Verifyle are extremely pleased about the partnership that we have with NBHAP. For those of you who are members of NBHAP, you get access to 1 year free of Verifyle Pro. It's at absolutely no charge to you. And for those of you who are not members of NBHAP, you can get Verifyle Pro free for 1 month using the coupon code, which is in all caps, NBHAP 2025. That's NBHAP 2025. Okay, the way that you can access your Verifyle Pro system is to just go ahead and sign into Verifyle for free. If you're an NBHAP member, make sure you sign in on the verifyle.com page for free using the email address by which NBHAP recognizes you to be a member. And then you should see the Verifyle Pro logo pop up on your Verifyle screen. If you are not an NBHAP member, go ahead and sign in for free. That will get you a Verifyle Basic account. And then if you go ahead and click on your name at the top right inside of your Verifyle Basic system, and then go into Account Settings, scroll down and click on Options, you will there see that you can upgrade to Verifyle Pro for 1 month for free by putting in that coupon code, NBHAP 2025. You'll get Verifyle Pro for 1 month for free. Okay. Your Verifyle Pro account will give you full access to everything in Verifyle Pro at no charge for that period, full access to all of the capabilities, including the ability to brand your Verifyle Pro account as you would like, and also unlimited electronic signatures capability. Quick caveat here, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I'm going to be showing you some general sharing examples today just to get you really comfortable with how to use Verifyle. So unlike other demonstrations you may have seen, this is probably not a good time to write down a bunch of detailed notes and everything like that. If you really get the sense for just 1 or 2 key concepts for how to use Verifyle, everything else will flow from that. The system is very intuitive and easy to use. So as we dive in here, let me first give you some brief background information about Verifyle. Verifyle is based in Silicon Valley, and we are led by Jack Smith, who is the individual who invented and co-founded the company Hotmail, which was many people's first experience with both email and the internet, and ultimately led to about 500 million users. He also had key roles with 2 successful digital security companies, Ironport and Proximex. Verifyle is all about making communication better. And we see 2 key aspects of communication. Those are security and productivity, neither of which should come at the expense of usability. In order for a system to be adopted, it must be extremely intuitive, extremely easy to use for professionals and clients alike. Now, the reason we place such persistent emphasis on security is that we believe the near-term future of professional services will continue to be characterized by 2 types of organizations and professionals. Those who make that extra effort to protect and secure their own information and that of their constituents and continue to reap the long-term trust relationship benefits that derive from that, and those organizations and professionals who do not protect that information and see a gradual erosion in those trust relationships. We want to make sure that all of our users fall on the positive side of that line. So you might ask yourself, what is Verifyle? Verifyle is ultra secure messaging and document sharing and storage all on a single screen, where in that single screen for each situation that you're working on, whether that be a client engagement, project management, or any kind of sharing or storage of sensitive information, you can see exactly who has access to what information, and if and when any single individual has looked at or downloaded any information. So you always have a very heightened sense of situational awareness in your communications, not only in terms of what you see on your side, but in terms of what's happening with those individuals, professionals, and clients, et cetera, on the other side of that communication. Think of Verifyle as your all-in-one communication power tool, specifically designed for those situations that you have to be absolutely on top of, that must be well organized, and above all, private and secure. Now, in our secure single screen, we've incorporated the most powerful components of email, cloud file sharing, unlimited electronic signatures, and our patented encryption key management technology, CelluCrypt, which manages the interaction of 6 different encryption keys for each time that any single individual interacts with any single data element inside of Verifyle. So each data element inside of Verifyle has been individually encrypted, such that even if somebody were to break past our encryption, which they won't, all they would be able to gain access to would be that single data element, and that's it. There's no potential for someone to break into Verifyle and scoop mass amounts of data to gain what we call bulk access, as they've done with so many systems out there in both the private and public sectors. So with Verifyle, there's no real incentive for someone to try and break in the first place, because there's not that potential for large-scale upside on that intrusion effort. This is a major reduction in risk for anyone who uses Verifyle. And we'll talk more about how this impacts you directly as we go into today's presentation. Okay, as we dive into today's presentation, please keep in mind that, again, I'm not a healthcare professional, but I'm going to be showing you some general sharing examples to really stress the key concepts for use behind Verifyle. In the demonstration, I will be acting as Dana, the healthcare professional. And please bear in mind that even though Verifyle is backed by all this encryption technology, by all this security, as users, we don't need to create any encryption keys, memorize any encryption keys, manage or share any encryption keys at all. That all happens automatically, completely behind the scenes for us. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, all of you should now be able to see the sign-in screen for Verifyle. You can access this screen using any of the major browsers. It doesn't matter whether you are using a Mac, a PC, or a tablet computer. You're also welcome to use our handy mobile app if you would like. All right, so I'm going to sign into Verifyle using my email address and password. All right, so I'll go ahead and click Next here. And you can see that I have chosen the option for the system to request of me an authentication code before I'm able to actually enter it, okay? And this authentication code comes in one of 2 forms if you're using Verifyle. You can either use an authenticator, or you can have a code texted or sent via SMS to your phone. That's the easier way to do it. Now, the benefit of using this second factor of authentication is, of course, even if somebody does have access to your password, they still won't be able to access your Verifyle system unless they also have your mobile device, for example, that receives that authentication code. All right, and you do have the option to click in this little box right here, if you would like, which essentially tells Verifyle, hey, Verifyle, in the future, if you can see that the access attempt is coming from this device and the browser that I'm using right now, and the password is correct, then you can assume it's me, and there's no reason to ask for that additional authentication code. But if that's not the case, then definitely ask for that code. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the authentication code. There we go. And now I'm inside of my Verifyle system. And the first thing you'll notice is that there's the NBHAP logo up at the top center. You can swap that out for any logo of your choosing if you would like, by simply clicking on your name at the top right, and then going into account settings and adding your own logo. I'll show you how to do that in just a few minutes here. Okay, the other thing I wanted to point out to you from the home screen of Verifyle here is that there are essentially 2 main areas in your Verifyle system. There's the Workspaces area, which I'm in right now, and you can see that by the fact that the Workspaces tab is highlighted. But let's start out by going into the Contacts area. So I'm going to click on the Contacts tab here, click. And here you can see all of my contacts inside of Verifyle, any one of which I can click on to open up a secure one-to-one communication between me, a secure one-to-one private messages communication between me and that other individual, in this case, Ellen Executive, where I can type any message I would like to her and get messages back to her. I can also click on the paperclip symbol here to upload any files I'd like to share with her. Let's start from scratch with a new situation. Let's say that I met an individual and I want to immediately open up a secure one-to-one communication with that individual, perhaps a potential client. Okay, all I need to do is click on the plus symbol right here. Okay, and I'm going to add in that individual. Let's say her name is Christine Carson. So I'll type in her name and her email address. Just like that. Okay, so I just added the name Christine Carson, and you can see in the center here, private messages with Christine Carson. So now I, Dana Shibley, with, let's say, Healthy House, have opened up a communication with a potential client, Christine Carson. All right, and I can come down here and type a secure message to Christine if I would like. And then I'll click on the paperclip symbol here, and I can go ahead and share a file with Christine as well. Now you see. Okay, so I'll choose the document called required reading, just as an example. All right, there's my message, there's the document I've uploaded, and now I click send. And when I click send, that information is all encrypted as it is pulled into Verifyle. There's my message, there's the document, and you can see the document expanded on over here where I can do a number of things to it. We'll take a look at that in a few minutes. The most important thing is that as I added this information into Verifyle and it was encrypted as it was pulled in, an email alert was automatically sent to Christine Carson, and that email alert lands in her old-fashioned email box and simply informs her that I, Dana Shibley, using the secure system Verifyle, am sharing with her securely inside of Verifyle a document called required reading and also a message that she can access inside of Verifyle. Now, she doesn't see the actual message, nor can she access that required reading document inside of her email. Why? Because email's not secure. We don't want to be sending sensitive information back and forth via email. However, Christine can click on the link in that email alert, which will bring her into Verifyle, where she can create her own password and then instantly be able to access the message and also the actual required reading document. And I will know instantly if she looks at or downloads that document. And I will also have a log of those access instances for me to refer to in the future anytime that I would like. Let's see what this sharing incident looks like from Christine Carson's perspective. So I'm going to go ahead now and sign in as Christine Carson. Of course, I would have received an email alert. Now I'm in as Christine Carson. And by the way, if I didn't want to click on that link in that email alert, I, Christine Carson, could have simply gone to verifyle.com myself and signed in there. But here I am as Christine Carson inside of Verifyle. And let's say, for example, that I haven't even seen the email alert. If I was already inside of Verifyle, then I would first probably see this internal alert right here, right? So I click on the Contacts tab. And here, I, Christine Carson, can see both the message and the document that Dana Shibley has shared with me, okay? And I can click on the document here or over here, and then I have option to either preview, look at the document, or actually download it. Either one of those actions, sending an alert to Dana to that effect, and also being logged in a way that Dana can access anytime that he would like. All right, so as Christine, I'm going to go ahead right here in this very familiar, easy to use interface, and I'm going to type a message back to Dana. Thanks, Dana. Please bring my husband, Sammy, into this communication as well. All right, I click send as Christine. All right, and now let's go back and look from Dana's perspective. I'm back in as Dana at Healthy House, and I can see the message that came back to me from Christine Carson right here. All right, thanks, Dana, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so And by the way, I could have requested a signature from Christine. I could have done a number of basic communication things. And I kind of belabored this process here, but the reason I did that was just to emphasize to you how simple that Verifyle is to use. How simple it is to simply click on the plus icon right here, add someone's name and email address, and then be securely communicating with them in the highly encrypted environment of Verifyle. And for many of you, that might be the main capability you're looking for to get things rolling as you bring a new client into your facility. All right, so that's the basics. All right, now beyond that are a number of other very powerful capabilities. For example, I can see here that Christine Carson wants to bring her husband, Sammy, into the communication with me. All right, so she wants to bring in that one other person, but she's also mentioned to me that she's got a favorite physician that she likes to lean on and share information with. And Christine has also mentioned to me that she's very close to her cousin who's helping her through, for example, a recovery process that she wants to go through. All right, so now there are different people, and she talked to me about sharing different information related to her condition with these different people, her husband, her physician, her cousin, et cetera, and I'm gonna have to be sensitive to some of that. So I'm getting signals from Christine Carson that there are gonna be multiple people potentially involved, not even mentioning the multiple people in my facility at Healthy House who might bring their resources and skills to bear on helping Christine with her recovery process, but other people in Christine Carson's world as well. So multiple topics, multiple people potentially involved. I'm gonna need some deeper level communication capabilities than the simple one-to-one private messages communication that I have going here with Christine Carson. So what do? I need a workspace for this situation. So I'm going to go to the Workspaces tab. I click on it. And here I can see a number of workspaces that I've already set up, from a client to planning for a new treatment facility, a place where there are various policies for intaking new clients, and a general project here. Okay, these are all situations in which there are probably multiple people involved and multiple subtopics, or what we call threads inside of Verifyle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a workspace for Christine Carson. So how do I do that? Very intuitive. I just click on the plus symbol right here in the Workspaces tab, and I'm going to call this new workspace Client Christine Carson. All right. And there we have it. There's the Client Christine Carson workspace right there. All right, and you can see that it's hosted by Dana Shibley. That's me. Why am I the host? Because I created this workspace, which automatically makes me the host. Anybody else I add inside of this workspace is going to be a guest, okay? And as the host, I am the only one who will be able to add and take away people from this particular workspace. I'm also the only one who can add and take away subtopics, threads from inside this workspace. Let's go ahead and click in here and take a look. Click. All right. You can see I'm inside the workspace called Client Christine Carson, but there's nothing in here. Not a surprise because I haven't added anything yet. But the Verifyle system is prompting me to add a guest. So I'm going to click here to add a guest. And the first person I'm going to add is Christine Carson herself. There she is. I did a search for her. And now I just added her. There you can see she's been added as a guest. And the Verifyle system recognized that I had already begun a secure one-to-one private messages communication with Christine Carson over in the contacts area. And even though I'm going to be communicating with a number of different people regarding potentially different topics with Christine Carson, it's still probably going to be convenient for me to have access to that one-to-one private messages communication with Christine Carson. And I can do that from inside the larger workspace environment that I've created here, Client Christine Carson. Okay, and the place that I get to take advantage of those deeper communication capabilities inside this workspace environment is via workspace threads. So I'm going to click on the plus symbol right here for workspace threads, and I'm going to create a first workspace thread, addiction notes. There we go. There's a workspace thread called addiction notes, and you'll see it's highlighted here. And in the center, I can see the addiction notes workspace thread, and no guests have access yet. So I need to assign guests access to the information that's going to be in here. How do I do that? This is very important, okay? Wherever you are in Verifyle, if you move your cursor around, you'll see various gear icons pop up, okay? When things are unclear about what you need to do to move forward, go to the gear. Keep that little corny jingle in your head and it'll serve you very well when you're using Verifyle. When things are unclear, go to the gear. Okay, I want to assign individuals access to this addiction notes workspace thread. So I'm going to click on the gear symbol right here. Then I'm going to click on Manage Permissions, which lets me determine who's going to get access. I click Manage Permissions, and I'm going to give Christine Carson access, just like that. Okay, and I also recall from the private message that I had with Christine Carson, which I can access by just clicking right here, she asked me to bring her husband, Sammy, into this communication. And I know that that was specifically with regard to addiction issues. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to the Addiction Notes workspace thread that only Christine has access to right now. I'm going to click on the gear icon, click on Manage Permissions, and I'm going to bring in her husband, Sammy. All right. Now, I've never worked with him before, so I have to add him. So I click there, and I'm going to add Sammy, just like that. All right, there's Sammy, and I add him. And now I can see that Christine and Sammy are going to have access to the information that I put inside of here. And I'll click on the paperclip symbol here to add a few documents. How about prescription and medical examination? All right. And by the way, I can just drag and drop those documents in like that if I would like. And now I'm going to click send. And I can now see that both me, Dana Shibley, and then also Christine Carson and Sammy Spouse all have access to this information inside the Addiction Notes workspace thread in Verifyle. All right, let's go ahead and add another workspace thread. So what do? I click on the plus symbol right here. And now I'm going to add a workspace thread called Spiritual Care. Okay. The Spiritual Care workspace thread, there it is right there. No guests have access. So what am I going to do? When things are unclear, I go to the gear. Okay, I click on the gear symbol here, click Manage Permissions, and I'm going to give Christine and Sammy access. And let's say I go ahead and add another person. Let's say that that person's name, I haven't worked with them in the past. So let's just say the first person's name is Father Finney. Okay. Keep it simple. All right. All right. So the Verifyle is skeptical that that's a real email address. That's a good thing, but I'm going to tell Verifyle to add that anyway. All right. And there you can see Father Finney has now been given access to the Spiritual Care workspace thread. And I'll type a message for the three of them. Welcome, Father Finney. And whatever other message I want to add in here, I can add a document if I would like. All right, I'll just add that one, and then I'll click send. So now I'm sharing information with a select group of 3 other individuals. Okay, I'll add another workspace thread here. This workspace thread I'm going to go ahead and call Art Therapy. Okay. All right, there's a new workspace thread called Art Therapy, et cetera, et cetera. You can imagine how I could give specific individuals access to this particular workspace thread, as well as Christine Carson and maybe an art therapy specialist that I bring in from the outside and so forth. Let's add another workspace thread. I'm going to call it OCD issues. All right, there's the OCD issues workspace thread. That's front and center. And I'm going to go over here. I go to the gear. I'm going to give access to, let's say, Christine Carson and Sammy Spouse. But for OCD issues, I'm going to also bring in a physician. Okay. So let's say that I want to bring in Paul Physician. Okay. There's Paul Physician, so I add him. I click Save, and now you can see that I'll be able to share information with Christine, Paul Physician, and Sammy Spouse. And I'll go ahead and send a message, and I'll add a document or two. Let's say I bring in check up result and research report. I'll go ahead and drag those documents in like that. And then I click send. That information is all encrypted as it's pulled into Verifyle. And then finally, I'm going to add one more workspace thread that is going to be a place for my reference alone, where I can keep any notes or documents related to the client that I'm not sharing with people at all, but just for my reference. So I click on the plus symbol here, and I'm going to create something that I call reference notes private. Okay, just for me. All right, so I just created a new workspace thread, reference notes private. Okay, no guests have access yet, and I'm going to click on the paperclip symbol here. I'm just going to pick some random document. Contract X42 and consulting agreement, just as an example. All right, and now I'm going to click send. But when I click send here, I'm not actually going to be sharing with anybody because no guests have access. So when I click send, all it does is basically put those documents in a secure, encrypted state, protected by the same encryption technology that I talked about earlier that's applied to all the documents that are being shared. But these documents are accessible by me alone for right now, right? But as you can probably already guess, at any point in the future, if I would like, let's say I have a new colleague join Healthy House, I could simply go over here, click on the gear symbol, and give a new colleague access to those reference notes, okay? But for right now, let's leave this as is. And then let's say regarding art therapy issues, you can see that's private as well, okay? I haven't shared anything with anybody yet, but let's say I know that I'm going to be bringing in a particular counselor from Healthy House to work using art therapy with Christine Carson. So I'm going to go ahead and already bring that person in advance. So I click on the gear symbol here for the art therapy workspace thread. And I click on manage permissions, and I'm going to add that new contact, okay? And that new contact is Annie Artworthy. And I'll add her email address as well. Okay, Verifyle is skeptical about the email address, but I'm going to add it anyway, right? There's Annie Artworthy. There she is. All right. Now Annie Artworthy has access to the art therapy workspace thread. Okay, so what's going on here? I, as the host of this workspace, client Christine Carson, have the ability to click on any of the guests that I've brought in here, click on their name individually to open up that secure one-to-one communication with any of those people, right? But at the same time, I've also created a number of workspace threads in which I have selectively assigned certain groups of individuals to each of those workspace threads to give them curated access to only the information that's relevant to them. And as you can imagine, it tends to be the case over time that, of course, there will be different documents and different messages put into each of these workspace threads by different people, okay? And I can curate all of that from this workspace environment called Client Christine Carson. So this is super useful. And what you'll find is that when you talk to people who have just started using Verifyle, you'll find that many of them will tell you that they started using Verifyle because they wanted to securely and in a compliant manner be able to easily communicate with other individuals, often individuals that they're bringing into their facility. However, if you talk to someone who's been using Verifyle for a couple of months, they'll tell you about all the productivity benefits of being able to use the workspace environment, which we've created here, which effectively ties together all the key people involved, all the key topics involved, the notes and documents into a single working environment, if you will, that really helps them make that entire situation for that client much more tangible and much more workable for everyone involved. All right. Okay, let's see what this all looks like from the actual client's perspective. For example, if I go ahead in and take a look at this from Christine Carson, the patient's perspective, if I go ahead and click on Workspaces, okay, so Christine Carson, would have received an email alert, of course, when new information was brought into Verifyle. I could also see the internal alert inside of Verifyle, and Christine Carson, can click here on the Client Christine Carson workspace, and I can see here, oh, there are actually 3 different workspace threads that have been shared with me, okay? And I think we actually ended up creating 5 or 6 workspace threads when we were functioning as Dana at Healthy House, right? But Dana has only enabled Christine Carson, the patient, access to 3 of those workspace threads, right? That was intentional. In fact, there might be 10 other workspace threads, but Christine has no idea that those other workspace threads even exist because Dana, who is the host of this workspace, did not give Christine access to those other workspace threads, which might involve multiple people, multiple counselors, and even outside professionals that are working through Healthy House, all thinking about and working on or reviewing information related to the Christine Carson situation. Of course, as a professional, you wouldn't want Christine to see all that information. You want to make sure that she's seeing specifically what you want her to see, right? So Dana has taken care to do that. And as Christine Carson, the client, I am then, of course, seeing only what has been intended for me to see. And I can go into any of these areas here. Let's say, for example, in addiction notes, I decide to look at the medical examination document. So I click on medical examination, okay, and I can preview it, okay. That just sent an email alert to Dana, by the way, that I accessed that document and that information, that access instance has been logged. For medical examination, I can also click on it and download it, okay. That also just sent an email alert to Dana, letting him know that I just downloaded the document, okay. And the alerts, of course, get cleared as I go in and I look at each of the individual documents. Let's say that as I'm in here thinking about the information in each of these workspace threads, it also occurs to me, Christine Carson, the client, that, interesting, for this spiritual care situation here, I know that Father Finney has been involved for some time, let's say some months have passed, and that Christine Carson, decide I don't want to be involved with Father Finney anymore for whatever reason, okay? Then Christine Carson, I can't remove Father Finney from this workspace thread. Why? Because I'm not the host of this workspace. I'm only a guest. But I can ask Dana Shibley at Healthy House to remove Father Finney from the spiritual care workspace thread. And I can do that by clicking on Dana's name right here and just type the message, please get rid of Father Finney. I don't want to work with him anymore. You get the idea, right? All right, so only Dana is going to see that message. All right, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to look from Dana's perspective. All right, so I go back in as Dana at Healthy House and I can see that Christine Carson is asking me to get rid of Father Finney. And I think to myself, oh, Father Finney. That's right. Well, Father Finney is in the spiritual care workspace thread. So sure, I can do this. I agree with this. And I'm going to remove Father Finney from the spiritual care workspace thread. See, Father Finney has access to what might now be, dozens and dozens of documents and hundreds of time and date stamped messages here. But I, as the host of this workspace, client Christine Carson, can go into the spiritual care workspace thread, click on the gear icon, and then click on Manage Permissions and remove Father Finney's access just like that. He no longer has access. And if I find out shortly thereafter that Christine Carson wants someone else involved, I can click on the gear icon and click on Manage Permissions and add in a new person. Let's say that that new person is Father Folger, okay? All right, so I add Father Folger, and there we see Father Folger. And now I can see Christine Carson, Father Folger, and Sammy's spouse would all have access to the dozens and dozens of potential documents in here and hundreds of potential time and date stamped messages. So this is extremely powerful, right? Because you can imagine that you probably have situations inside your facility where you're changing out one counselor for another new counselor who just came in and is replacing that original counselor, right? Imagine trying to do that swap over if you're using email and email attachments. When I just swapped in Father Folger for Father Finney, Father Folger would now be able to see all of that entire historical transcript of all the people involved, all the messages and documents that were shared between everyone over the past 6 months, several years, whatever. In short, I would have that entire encapsulation of information related to spiritual care for Christine Carson. And the person who's the host of this workspace, Dana Shibley in this case, was able to make that entire transition happen in just seconds. So that's a very, very powerful capability inside of Verifyle. The other thing that I can do is the following. I'm going to go into the addiction notes workspace thread. And the medical examination is a very important document here. And I want to know who has access to that document so far. Okay, so what I can do is I can go to the medical examination document here. I can click on the gear icon, right? And then I can see a number of capabilities here of things I can do, including, as you would expect, I can download this document. I can download multiple documents from this workspace thread. But what I want to know is who has looked at the medical examination, who has accessed it. And all I need to do is click on View Access History. And I can see here that Sammy's spouse hasn't looked at this document yet. I probably should have assigned a physician to this workspace thread, but I haven't. But I can see here that Christine Carson has actually accessed the medical examination document 2 times. And if I click here, I can see the exact date and time that she accessed this particular document. Okay, so she's accessed it twice. So that's very useful for me. For example, let's say that I see that she's looked at this document 27 times in the last 3 weeks. That might be a tip-off to me that she could use someone to perhaps explain to her what some of the important details in her medical examination document. At this point, I might actually pull the physician into this workspace thread and explain some of that to her, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Also, this is a great tip-off in that if I know I'm going to have an interaction with Christine Carson in the next hour or so, but I can see that Christine Carson accessed this medical examination document or any other document just a short while ago, that's probably a good tip-off that Christine might want to actually discuss that particular document. And I can be on my toes and prepared to do that. So being able to see exactly who has looked at what document when really heightens that overall sense of situational awareness for me in terms of me being able to understand where everyone else is in terms of being up to speed on information regarding different documents and different workspace threads, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, I can, inside of any workspace thread or any private message, I can at any time go ahead and click on an individual's name to see when they were last inside of that workspace thread, regardless of whether or not they actually added any content. So I can click on Sammy's spouse's name right there, and I can see that Sammy has not even been inside of the OCD issues workspace thread yet. And I can click on Christine Carson's name right there and see that she was last inside of here on Thursday, May 29th at 9:13 a.m. All right, giving me at a minimum a sense of the recency of this information in Christine's mind. Okay, so hopefully you're now all getting a real sense of how you can use private messages, which I started out accessing at the very beginning of today's demonstration, a very simple place to securely communicate one-to-one with anybody, right? And how for situations where I need deeper level communication capabilities, I can create a workspace like the client Christine Carson workspace that I created right here, okay? And was able to use to orchestrate information across multiple people and multiple topics. A nice way to think of these various workspace threads is as subfolders within the larger organizational framework of the workspace, okay? And just to help round out your understanding here, I'm going to show you a couple of workspaces that I already created in advance. One of them is for client Carl Carnegie, and if I click on client Carl Carnegie Workspace, you can see a number of different workspace threads related to his situation. I haven't added the appropriate counselors and physicians and outside professionals and maybe family members or even insurance companies to each of these particular issues. But you can imagine how easy it is to do that. As you know by now, right? Whenever things are unclear, you go to the gear in order to make effective changes or add capabilities to various areas of Verifyle. Okay, the other workspace that I created in advance is not a patient situation, but a project, if you will, new treatment facility planning. And if I click here, you can see how I've got key individuals involved, right? From the executive of Healthy House to an attorney and a banker, a physician, et cetera, and then there are various workspace threads up from reference storage, just for my own reference, to funding, revenue forecasts, construction plans, et cetera, et cetera. Each of these workspace threads being under the new treatment facility planning workspace. Okay, so hopefully all of you now are getting a real sense for Verifyle. I'm taking longer than I anticipated, but just as a quick wrap up here, for many of you, you're going to be able to meet the vast majority of your needs by using simply the contact area of Verifyle. Others of you are going to want to build out workspaces, depending upon exactly how you want to use Verifyle in your environment. You should know that in the contacts area, not only can you click on the plus symbol to add in contact information for individuals you'd like to immediately begin secure communication with, to share documents outbound and collect documents and messages from people as well. But you might also want to rapidly be able to fill out your entire contacts list, and you can do that by bulk importing contacts using the CSV file format, which is the standard file format that software companies use to export and import contact information. And if you click here, you will see how you can bulk import a CSV file. If you need some help or want to watch a mini tutorial video about how to import CSV files, simply go to youtube.com and type in Verifyle contacts. You'll see a very brief video there that shows you how to bulk import your contacts into Verifyle. That way you'll have your whole contact list immediately filled out and be able to right away start communicating one-to-one with any of those people. And when you build out your workspaces, you won't have to worry about typing in names and email addresses each time as you fill out those workspaces. Okay, and then finally, you should all be aware that you can, at any time, click on your name at the top right, then go into account settings. And in the account settings area, this is where you can change your name, your email address, you can change your digital signature, you can swap in any logo of your choosing, and there are a number of other capabilities inside of Verifyle here that you can also take advantage of. If you have any questions at all, by the way, feel free to email us at any time at support@verifyle.com. Okay, I think most of these items are self-explanatory. I'll just hit a couple of them on the head because they're particularly critical. This is where you can change your password inside of Verifyle, of course. Session management, I recommend that you all go into the session management area. If you click here, this will inform you as to whether you have any sessions open via other browsers or other devices, and you can promptly close those out. But most importantly, you can use this slider right here to indicate to Verifyle the amount of time after which, if you have been inactive in your Verifyle system, that Verifyle will automatically log you out. I like to keep mine at about 1 or 2 hours, okay? And it is also here that you can choose whether you want your two-factor authentication to be via an authenticator, which resides on your mobile phone, or the easier one to set up is 2FA phone, we call it. That's where you receive that text number, which you put in after your password as that second factor authentication. All right. So those are the key points that I wanted to point out to you. And again, if you are an NBHAP member, you simply sign in for free on the verifyle.com page using the email address by which NBHAP recognizes you to be a member, and you will get Verifyle Pro free at no charge for a year. And if you are not an NBHAP member, you can sign up on the same page, verifyle.com, for free, And then once you are inside your basic Verifyle system, you would click on your name at the top right, go into account settings, scroll down, click on show options, and go ahead and choose Verifyle Pro and put in that coupon code. All caps, NBHAP 2025, in order to get your 1 month free. Okay, so those are the key capabilities inside of Verifyle. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. And thank you for taking time to learn about Verifyle. Thank you.